Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Dennis Bray.
Residents in northwest Montana probably wondered what happened to fall when they woke up this morning. The
lower elevations of the area saw their first significant snow of the season. Take a look, as you can see from this video. Taking Kalispell around 9:30 this morning. It was a mix of fall and winter in the area today. A nice coating of snow clung to the trees and covered the ground and the snow-covered rooftops. Just another signal to get out the hats and mittens, or at least know where they are, because Old Man Winter is nearby, with the area receiving under an inch of snow by afternoon. Most of this had already melted.
So for the latest conditions, let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost. Aaron.
Well, we do have another system headed our way overnight tonight into the first half of the day tomorrow, which has brought about another winter weather advisory and another chance to see some of that snow in the lower terrain. Here's Hamilton earlier this afternoon. First Security Bank ICAM. Obviously more clouds than sun out there today. We have seen kind of hit and miss rain and snow showers here and there, but things will pick up in intensity overnight tonight into your Friday. Here's a look at where those advisories are. They begin late tonight, will last through noon tomorrow. Generally elevations above 3,000 feet, looking at 1 to 4 inches, specifically the West Glacier region. I've got more details on the way.
University of Montana President-elect Seth Bodner has officially arrived in Missoula. Today he and his wife met with the media, and he says he is looking forward to beginning this transition process and becoming UM's next top administrator. Bodner is one of the youngest people chosen to lead the Missoula campus. He believes with his youth comes a wealth of energy and a fresh perspective. Bodner says he's up to date with current concerns and issues regarding the school's budget. He is eager to tackle those situations when he assumes office next year. He says he's excited to meet with students and faculty and get to know what really makes the university tick.
The way you do that is spending time with them and really understanding in their environment what they do on a day-to-day basis, what their needs are, what their ideas are. And you only get that perspective by spending time with them. Students are the lifeblood of this university. They are the reason we're here, and they have both great ideas and terrific passion for this place.
And since his arrival lands on homecoming week, he says he is looking forward to joining the party, and in fact he's planning to hike Mount Sentinel to light the M tomorrow night. In a report that the University of Montana Police Department recently released, campus crime seems to be taking a downturn.
MTN's Augusta McDonald has more details on what UMPD is taking away from this new report.
Additional Residence Life staff moved into student housing in 2014, and statistics suggest their presence might be helping to drop the amount of drug and alcohol use on campus. They added several full-time area coordinators to oversee each of the buildings.
So we're now in our 4th year of those positions, and having a person in the building that can follow up quickly with students in respect to violations or helping them if they're struggling with particular issues, I think has helped in regard to the drop in alcohol and drug violations in our residence halls.
Liquor law violations on campus cut in half from 2014 to 2015, dropping from 417 to 215. That number dipped slightly lower last year. All but one violation occurred in student housing. Even as the number of substance use violations went down, another statistic almost doubled. The number of rapes reported increased, but officials say that might actually be a good thing. UMPD fully implemented a new sexual assault investigation policy in 2015 to comply with an agreement they made with the Department of Justice after that agency investigated issues with UM's handling of sexual assaults.
It's something that we expected when we initially began creating policies around sex assault investigation, and the independent reviewer and Department of Justice people that we were working with on that all informed us that a rise in reporting would be indicative of better public trust.
In 2014, there were 11 reports of rape on campus. In 2015, 2 reports, and in 2016, 22 reports. Gladwin says ramped up programs for victims of sexual assault and general awareness could have helped, although there was a chill in reporting in 2015. Thousands of students have now been trained by the Student Advocacy Resource Center on bystander intervention. Reporting in Missoula, I'm Augusta McDonald for MTN News.
The report is completed in compliance with the Clery Act, a federal mandate that ensures public transparency about campus policing and safety.
Senator Jon Tester is still waiting for his colleagues to schedule a hearing on the proposed Blackfoot Clearwater Stewardship Act more than a month after submitting a formal request to advance the legislation. Tester introduced the act last February, a proposal to protect 79,000 acres lying in the headwaters of the Blackfoot River. The tract lies just outside the Bob Marshall Wilderness. But the act isn't just a wilderness set-aside. It would also establish multi-use trails, open over 2,000 acres for snowmobiling, protect nearly 4,000 acres for mountain biking, with allowances for selective timber operations. The bill has a broad coalition of support, and in early September, Tester asked the chair of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, and ranking member Senator Maria Cantwell of Washington to schedule a hearing on the act. He's still waiting. Montana Senator Steve Daines also serves on that committee. Despite the broad support, no hearing date has been set. It was 25 years ago this week the captivating short story A River Runs Through It debuted on the big screen, with director Robert Redford lovingly translating the McLean family story to film. Although it wasn't filmed in Missoula, the movie helped to complete the local legacy the novella had introduced. And for Norman McLean's grandson, this year marks not only the anniversary of a personal tale of western Montana life, but a reminder of the value of the Blackfoot Stewardship Act. A few weeks ago, before the summer fire smoke choked the Blackfoot Valley, the Montana Wilderness Association invited supporters of the Blackfoot Stewardship Act to see how protections on the headwaters are so critical for this legendary river. Setting off from Corrix River Bend, we floated past the canyon where Norman McLean, his brother Paul, and father shared that remarkable last fishing trip. It's a place where Montana seems more poetic, more thoughtful, and a state that encourages deep thinking. But McLean's grandson, along for the float, says for him it's a place where memories and the technique of Norman's four-count rhythm mingle with his own experience.
I think what my goal is when I'm out here is to get to a point where I'm clean of thoughts and just experiencing the moment. But there's never a time when my grandfather's spirit's not near my heart when I'm fishing, and he had all sorts of rules about how to do it, and many of them I obey, and not all of them, but he informs everything I do out here. Most of what I know about the foundations of my understanding of wild places and rivers and fishing knots and rods, he planted most of those seeds, and my parents, with him. So yeah, it all connects together into one thing, and it's my history and his history and this place. It all becomes one thing.
The interesting thing about experiencing the Blackfoot or any of these other special places in western Montana is how that experience becomes your own. While you can build upon the legacy of someone like Norman McLean, it's all about finding your own way and your own depiction of these special places. Snyder sees his 9-year-old son and his nephew discovering the Blackfoot for themselves.
They're having the same experience my brother and I had, and my grandfather and his brother had. And there is a continuity, there's a shared experience, there's a truth in it.
It's that unique ecosystem supporters say the act would enhance, preserving not only these lower reaches of holes and riffles, but the upper headwaters.
They're cold, clear mountain streams that are great fisheries habitat, and a lot of these fluvial west slope cutthroat and bull trout will migrate up through the river systems into those smaller tributaries to reproduce.
And it's not just fishing and floating. Snyder notes the act would protect the shoulder areas up against the western Bob Marshall.
This would protect those areas, the areas that actually get visited the most, and mean that, those same places I went on a hike with my grandfather and my parents, they'll be there for my son and hopefully his children, and it's on us to save these places. If we don't, they won't be there, and nobody will be able to experience it again.
In other news this afternoon, President Trump signs an executive order which he says is the first step in repealing Obamacare.
The order allows small businesses to buy cheap health insurance plans across state lines. Mula Lange has more details now from the White House.
This will be great health care.
President Trump signed an executive order he says will increase competition in the health insurance industry.
This would open up additional options for employers to purchase the health plans their workers want.
The president's order expands the ability for some employers to buy cheaper coverage across state lines, which the president believes will lead to lower premiums.
Insurance companies will be fighting to get every single person signed up.
The president says he was forced to sign the executive order because Congress couldn't agree on a plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul is one of the Republicans who voted against previous plans. He says he supports this one because it lowers premiums without adding to the deficit.
This reform, if it works and goes as planned, will allow millions of people to get insurance across state lines at an inexpensive price.
Critics say because the cheaper insurance plans don't have to adhere to Obamacare rules, such as minimum benefit standards, they lure in younger, healthier customers from the insurance market, leaving older and sicker customers to pay more.
It is a sabotage of the Affordable Care Act.
It will take several months for the Trump administration to work out the details and implement the president's order. Mola Lenghi, CBS News, the White House.
The changes will be subject to a formal rulemaking process, including a public comment period. The order could also trigger lawsuits from some of the states.
Coming up, winds making conditions in California for firefighters very tough on those front lines.
We'll have the latest on that deadly firestorm burning in wine country. Still ahead here on MTN.